Hello and welcome to another episode of Combat Analysis. Today we're looking at clips from Kokebok, a funny little skirmish map that divides the teams into cells at the start of the round, resulting in multiple parallel fights. Killing all the opponents in your cell then removes the barrier to the ones next to you, allowing you to assist your teammates in those cells and progressing the run until only one of the teams are left standing. Getting swarmed or backstabbed is therefore still a thing, but in a much more controlled manner than classical skirmish. In this first clip, I was pitted against Godmer Philip with Jack on my side. I get a fortunate stab opening here, but the drag feels a little telegraphed. I'm quite surprised that attack did not hit me. It must have gone over my head. If I had chambered sooner or D-keyed instead, I would have felt better about my performance, but fortunately he missed, which forced him into another hard read. At this point it's pretty obvious I should have kept comboing. A stab combo follow-up would have resulted in his death unless he miraculously caught the weapon in time. He was pretty quick to pick it up in our timeline as well, but not quite fast enough had I comboed. Anyway, Jack makes sure to close that case, and so we can turn our full attention towards Philip instead. I was hoping to outdrag him here, but that wish did not come true. It's pretty brave of me to not chamber or CFTP here, since a headshot would have actually killed me. But we eventually get the panic we're looking for, and that closes out the 2v2. And now it's high time for us to engage the other cells. Some people might look discouragingly at my decision to go for Draiku over Fresh here, but I don't think it's necessarily that bad. Reason being that both are very clearly within Eric's field of view, so there's no potential backstab on him for me to prioritize. The opening on Draiku and the stabs that follow are at least pretty effective. I did manage to escape his vision quite well, and the killing blow combo leads very seamlessly into the next engagement with Gay Pearl. This last attack could have potentially been a pretty strong feint, but either is fine. I was a little slow on the parry here, but the glance mitigates most of the damage. I always find it impressive when people parry in response to combo kicks, since they're so incredibly fast. How we managed to get the next parry, however, I can't really explain. The time between his parries is unequivocally less than a full parry duration. Between the frame where he starts to move his arms for the first parry to where the next one connects is only 850 milliseconds. The only reason I can think of is that it was soon enough after my first hit that it registered as a late unsuccessful parry in response to that attack. But I did and still do find it surprising. Here I sensed a presence on my left and turned around just a little too late to outpace Fresh. I definitely should have been able to parry that stab though. This miss is just a result of slightly too much S-keying, which forces me into a safe TP, but the double parry at least counteracts the stamina loss. Another kick combo here, but Gay Pearl doesn't let any of it pass, unfortunately. This hit was pretty much unavoidable after the panic parry, but by now I have actually survived long enough that my teammates have shown up, which is good. Sadly I also gave up initiative to Fresh. I could have even backed off at this point if I really wanted to catch a break, but I do like the idea of staying put because I still had decent fighting stamina left, and if that prevents Eric from ending up in a 1v2 it seems worth it. And the real issue in this situation anyway is my failure to capitalize on my own initiative, and the resulting CFTP. I ultimately died because of a hard read, which wasn't entirely necessary. Stamina was kind of low, but Jack was also right behind me, and I honestly would have afforded one more chamber. In the end, we still managed to win the round. And on that note, I think we can move on to the next engagement. This one starts as a 3v3 in a sandwich cell, in contrast to the fight before. I'm not a big fan of this opening where I purposely avoid the halberd swing, leaving it for System B to deal with instead. Which, impressively, he does, but I definitely should have caught it instead. After that cock-up, I do however get a decent counter initiation, and continue doing my job by connecting with Jack's second swing. Here I opt for a chamber drag, which he successfully leanbacks, and given how many times he's done that to me at this point in my life, I probably should have stopped doing it altogether, but here we are. So that tanks my stamina pool a bit, but I do get an opportunity for a switch here, which replenishes some of it. It's not the perfect switch by any stretch, since Jack gets the same exact opportunity on System B as a result, but at least it's not a negative trade. Luckily I do land the follow-up as well, and here I think I could have pulled off a combo feint to break the rhythm and possibly have gone for a killing subsequent thrust, but as always unpredictability is the bottom line. This was a slightly smoother switch than the last, since I landed the hit without it immediately leading to my opponent's free reign, so I'm pretty happy with that slash even if it dealt fairly low damage. Here I end up doing an emergency morph just to extend the reach of my attack, as System kinda runs in front of me, and I just barely managed to clip the guy again, which is cool. And by now the numbers guy has also died, which means we're at a pretty significant advantage, at least in this cell. Here is maybe one of the worst mistakes, it's at least tied with the opening, because at this point in time I really should have target switched to Jack instead. It's very clear that System's going for my opponent, and since he has just parried in response to my feint, even if he manages to turn around, he will still die to that attack, so there's really no reason for me to also target him. It would have been a lot better to switch onto Jack and nullify his backstab. Now again, System B manages to miraculously parry the attack that I'm letting through, so nothing bad comes of it this time either, but taking the risk really isn't worth it. It is now that I realize the left border is down, and that we are getting swarmed by an additional 5 opponents, so rather than going for the backstab on Girth and Zoom, I cover a little ground and try to position myself in such a way that these 3 can't circle around us, which I think is a good call. It also means I barely avoid the Bardiche swing and get to at least open on Weijie. Here I could have taken action sooner, as he was clearly switching away from me. I'm a little unsure if this strike was a gamble on my part. It is at least an edge case, no pun intended, since my wind-up appears to be about 125 milliseconds later than his, which pretty much negates the wind-up delta t. So it very much comes down to our respective swing manipulation in this case, and mine wasn't the best. Ultimately it is a little hard to know for sure, since he feinted the attack, but I could have accelerated slightly harder as usual, and more to the point, wound up sooner in the first place. For both of the attacks that follow, I could have done a better, faster job of lean backing to improve my chances of seeing and reading them. There really wasn't much point in looking down at all during the slash on edge. If I had just turned left instead, I would have had a much better chance of seeing the SY attack. Anyway, it should come as no surprise that this round was ultimately won by the other team. Okay, fight number 3. Another 3v3 sandwich round. Here I changed my mind at the last second when I saw Tekker's panic parry, and rather than going for a traditional stab or stab feint, I tried to chamber the halberd to prevent it from hitting him. But I wasn't nearly fast enough. The attack had already landed by the time I wound up mine. The attention was good, but execution poor. I still managed to land my hit though, which was cool, and in addition, the halberd swing completely missed Tekker's. The thing to keep in mind here is that there is a very high risk of me getting backstabbed, since we're 2v1ing this guy, while Max is 1v2ing his 2 teammates just a moment away. Therefore I kinda like the slash combo and peek to the right I do here, which tells me if I have a switching opportunity to those 2, while also making sure that I'm not getting backstabbed myself. Here I'm kinda doing the completely wrong thing in response to his riposte. The trick is I need to land my hit as soon as possible to be able to parry his, but instead I pan to the right to angle the parry I want to trigger, which ironically makes my attack land even later, and in turn postpones the parry. The thing that saves me is that his attack over Axel's, and that's the thing I should have capitalized on from the start, essentially by moving towards his attack as much as possible, while also accelerating mine to get out of my swing sooner. I did neither of these, and so the attack missed me by mere circumstance. Now AJ has switched onto me, and for now, this is who I need to focus on. Despite his buffers, I never really lose initiative here, and therefore I could have maybe kept proning for panics, but instead I chose to follow through on the second stab. This is where Pola makes the switch onto Max, which unfortunately results in his death. But it also allows for a backstab on Jay, and thanks to that I can land the killing blow, which makes the trade equal. We were a bit unlucky with the wall coming down here, just as the halberd swing came through. That resulted in Phoenix dying in what was previously the other cell. As far as manip goes, this Axel was a lot better than the one I produced at the end of the previous engagement, and it led into a very smooth combo feint on Pola. But I do turn around afterwards to keep an eye on the other guy. At this point we have thankfully won in the leftmost cell, so the numbers are looking pretty good for us on this side of the map. It's a bit sloppy of me to not parry there, even if it could have been stopped by the guy on my right. After that kill, I had a dire need to regen stun though, and I don't think I could have initiated sooner on edge, even though that led to Dev getting hit here. My counter initiation is at least pretty effective, and leads to another kill. The fight, as well as this episode, is ultimately concluded with a successful halberd drag by Techers. So thank you for watching this episode of Combat Analysis. If you liked it and want to see more of these, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Alright, Burkus out.